Welcome to the Dropout Multi-Millionaire podcast, hosted by best-selling author and serial entrepreneur Brian Will. Here we go.
Very excited to introduce my next guest. This is a really cool, dynamic story. Please welcome Brian Will to the show. He is author of a new book called The Dropout Multi-Millionaire, 37 Business Lessons on How to Succeed in Business with No Money, No Education, and No Clue. Fantastic title. It has almost 250 reviews on Amazon, which is a huge number. It puts it in the top 1% of books out there on Amazon. Very impressive. Brian has been successful in a lot of different businesses, 4 main industries, I think. He is currently working in the restaurant space, residential development, and also a tech company. Brian, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate you having me on today. I'm excited about being here.
So how far did you make it in school? Drop out of what? Graduate school? You drop out of your PhD program? What'd you do?
No, I actually failed out of high school my junior year.
Wow. Describe
primarily
what
because
does that exactly mean?
I just stopped going.
Okay.
And
eventually, did they not have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I have kind of a sordid, rough background, so they weren't really too involved.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. The system let that happen as well. I mean,
no, I'm kind of old now. I'm 57. We go back to the latchkey kid days, where people don't really know what that means anymore. But I was the kid that got up and your parents were gone and came home from school and your parents were gone. And by the time I hit 16, I just didn't feel like going anymore and they weren't there to make me. So I didn't go.
All right. And what happened to you? What'd you end up by 20? What were you doing?
Well, I got back in. I ended up graduating and I went into the military because I didn't have any place to go. Spent a year on active duty, then transferred to the National Guard and tried to work, couldn't hold a job, kept getting fired from construction to restaurants to, working as a waiter and a busboy, and finally decided that I was unemployable and my only real option was to go into my own business. So I started my first landscaping company at 21. That's how I got started.
And why were you unemployable and getting fired by all of these people? Were you a bad employee? Would you fire you now?
I would have fired me now, yeah. I grew up in kind of a rough household, so I grew up angry, had a big chip on my shoulder, didn't like authority, didn't like to be told what to do, which is kind of a challenge in a working environment. So, first thing you should obviously do when you have all those issues is join the military.
Well, I think so. I do think it's a good place to get some of that out of you, isn't it? Isn't that what happened with you?
It was. I needed it at the time. I didn't have any other choice, and looking back, it was something I needed to do in my life. So, it gave me a little bit of discipline, a little bit of appreciation of hard work, and so when I got back off active duty, I went into my own business, and that's how we got started.
Brian, I believe that there are certain privileges that our country gives us. The privilege of driving on the roads that they built, the privilege of collecting unemployment insurance from them from time to time. I think that for those privileges, we should pay a price, and I think everyone should go into the armed services for 2 years, at which point they force you to take basic parenting classes, basic checkbook balancing, and turn you into a fighting guy, and maybe send you off to the Peace Corps or something. But I think everyone should do something to give back. What do you think?
It's an interesting debate. And while I don't disagree with you, and I think there are a lot of people that would agree on that point, I think America, being a free country, gives us the opportunity to do it if we want to and not do it if we don't.
Okay,
so
then you don't get the opportunity to get a driver's license. You don't get the opportunity to collect unemployment insurance later because you didn't do the basics to play along.
Yeah, that's very possible. My daughter actually went into the AmeriCorps, not Peace Corps, but AmeriCorps after she graduated and spent a year volunteering. So,
excellent.
Different types of good programs out there.
All right. So, how'd the landscape business do?
It went good until it didn't. Right. So we built it up, and I made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot of lessons, and then it crashed and burned, lost everything, and we had to start over again when I was 28. And that's when I went into the insurance business.
Give us more detail than that. How do you burn a landscape business? I mean,
Well, you start a franchise, but you use a business partner that didn't write your documents correctly. They were called your UFOC documents back then, which allowed your franchisees to essentially stop paying you. And then on the construction side of the business, you concentrate 90% of your business with one developer. And when you get fired from that developer, your entire company collapses. So two big mistakes.
Yes. Okay.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket mistake, basically. and don't get so deep into debt that you're in trouble.
Because of that?
2 houses, all my cars, all my money. I bounced 130 checks in 1 month. The bank canceled my deposit accounts. I had a wife and a new baby, and we had to go find a new place to live. It was pretty bad.
Yes. And what were the lessons learned? What did you take from that? Other than the fact that are you still married to that woman?
No, although we get along great.
Okay.
But we are not married anymore.
I also have an entrepreneur divorce, so I can totally understand that. Those sort of things just are hard to work out.
Yeah. Biggest lessons learned, of course, is don't concentrate all your business in one area. Secondarily, however, I was spending every dollar I had, didn't have any savings, we were up to our eyeballs in debt. And when we had a couple of bad months, we got into serious trouble. And that's when we had to start selling everything. So I've never made that mistake again.
All right. And how did you bounce back? What was the next venture?
From there, I started selling insurance for an agency. After a couple of months, I decided to start my own. This was back in about 1999, right as the internet was coming online. And we mistakenly, without knowing what we were doing, created the first call center in the health insurance space, which was bought by a venture capital firm, which is how I got back into the venture capital and technology side. So
did you trip by mistake and all of a sudden you had developed a call center? I tripped. Oh, damn, I hit my head. Oh, and I built a call center in the same time.
Jim, let me tell you, this is what I call ambitiously lazy. Right? I am ambitious, but I am lazy. So I try to figure out ways to do things that I could do without me having to do them. So instead of me going out and doing all the sales, I hired a guy to do the sales while I sat at home. And then instead of me taking the calls, I hired a guy to take the calls. And then instead of me doing the paperwork, I hired somebody to do the paperwork. And then we got tired of paying the guy who was running around town. So we called the insurance company and said, hey, can we do this by fax? And they agreed. And now we have people just sitting in an office selling over the phone, doing faxes. And then when the internet came along, they were like, oh my gosh, if you can do it by fax, we can do it online. And you're the only people doing it. So my company got bought. And it was literally just me being too lazy to go do all the things that are needed to be done to build a company like that.
I feel like I should call BS on you, Brian.
Why?
Okay, so then what did you do?
So sold that company, and then we ended up turning it to a company called Connecture.com, which went public. Then started another company doing insurance again. Again, this time we did it pure online. Ended up selling that company to GetInsured.com, which now powers probably 7 or 8 different state exchanges. We started another online company with another partner selling online leads in the subprime and insurance market. Sold that company to a private equity firm out of Chicago, and then started doing consulting. It's amazing when you sell a couple companies, everybody in the world thinks that you're super smart and they want you to come in and tell them what they're doing wrong. I'm talking billion-dollar public companies. And I used to laugh that 10 years ago I was probably mowing the CEO's grass, and now I'm in his boardroom telling him what he's doing wrong.
And what were they doing wrong? What was that business specialized?
Mostly,
was it a cash flow business or what?
No, it's direct to consumer sales, right? So if you think of the insurance industry 20 years ago, everybody was doing it face to face. And today you go online and you buy it, or you call a call center. And so my specialty was direct to consumer, which is teaching call centers how to sell. And all these insurance companies were trying to do it, but they were trying to do it from a corporate perspective instead of an entrepreneurial perspective. And none of them were making money. So, I've gone in and done turnaround work on 4 or 5 different companies, teaching their people how to sell and make a profit.
And what is the trick there?
That's a long answer, but the trick is the correct lead buy. You have to get correct ROI on your leads, and then you have to teach proper sales techniques to your sales force. This gets into my 70 20-10 rule, where we fire the 10% of the sales force all the time. We replace them. We try to train the balance up. This is called bottom-up P&L training, where we do actual individual P&Ls on every single salesperson in the organization. This allows you to see who's profitable and who's not just who's selling and who's not, because there's a difference there. And if you can build those P&Ls from the bottom up instead of the top down, you can make an organization much more profitable.
But kind of brutal.
It's brutal, but the world is brutal.
No, it's fuzzy and sweet. It tastes like daffodils and smells like daisy.
But when I roll into a company that's losing $1 million a month in their call center in Minneapolis, you have to make hard choices and you have to do things that aren't comfortable to fix it.
Yes, that is very true. All right, let's talk about the book. What are some of the 37 lessons in the book?
Oh my gosh. Most of these, my book is less on the technical side or the skill set side of business and really more on the mindset side. I find that a lot of entrepreneurs, and I would think that from a little bit I've read about your organization, probably agrees with me here that mindset is one of the most important things. And most entrepreneurs launch without really knowing what they're doing. And the first mistake they make is they don't bring in a coach or a mentor to help them overcome the easy mistakes so that they can get onto the bigger ones. So we talk a lot about mindset in the book. The way you need to think, what you need to understand about yourself, and what you need to understand that you're good at and what you're not good at, and bringing in, backfilling your organization with people who are good at where you're weak. That's a lot of what the book is about, and it's a lot of stories of where I made mistakes along the way and had to learn those examples. So a lot of soft skills.
All right, is everyone capable of learning those?
I think so. If you are. So I talk about the fact that most businesses that are successful have these different personalities. And a lot of people who start businesses think that they're the entrepreneur, and really they're the technician or the specialist. They're the person that does the work, right? I call it the Plumber Syndrome. Joe starts a business and because he used to work for a bigger plumbing company and now he thinks he's a business person, and he is, but Joe doesn't have the back office skills that he needs in order to run a proper company. He's good at doing the plumbing. He's the specialist. So if you're the specialist, you need to bring in somebody else to manage the office and maybe somebody else to do the actual sales. And your ability to recognize who you are within the organization is a lot of times determined on how well your organization is going to go and how big it's going to get and how much money you'll make. If you can get your ego out of the way.
In that situation,
he can be the entrepreneur, but he's also not the manager, right? So I use the example of myself as I'm terrible at details. I'm a good salesperson, but I'm terrible at details. And I think that applies to a lot of salespeople. So I have to hire people to manage the back end and manage my schedule. I have to hire people to look after the payroll, and I have to hire people to do all the things that I don't want to do and can't do so that I can do what I'm good at. I have a famous saying in my organization that I'm useless, right?
What are
Don't
you
ask
good
me
at
about all the
again, Brian?
I'm good at sales. That's what I'm good at.
And then who's good? Is there always someone that you bring in that's good at the operations, or is that always the same person?
I've had different people over the years. I had one person that stayed with me for about 20 years through 3 companies that handled operations, but he's gone on to do his own thing now. So I've brought different people in to do it. So it really depends on the business.
All right. You have a chapter that's called Being the CEO. What is that in relation to entrepreneurship?
So I think if you're going to be a CEO and also if you're going to launch a company, there are certain things that you need to understand about business. And a lot of them is that the business isn't always going to be the warm and fuzzy, fun, everything's working out in your favor kind of thing. As a CEO, you're going to take a lot of hits. You're going to take hits from your employees. You're going to take hits from the government. You're going to take hits from people on social media. You need to understand that being a CEO means that people are going to come after you and try to take you down or slow your business down or, hurt you in some way. And you've got to be able to stand in the kitchen when it's on fire and not get excited and keep moving forward. So a lot of that is about mentality of the CEO and what's going to come at you and how you need to handle it. And I use an example when I was young in business and I was having problems with this company, and this guy pulls me in his office and he said, "Brian, this is the business that you signed up for. If you can't stand the heat, you need to get out of the kitchen and do something else." And that was one of those aha moments in my life where I said, okay, I can handle it. And so you take what comes at you, you move on, and you keep going.
Very well said. Yes, there always has to be someone who does put up with the hardest part. negotiating. You've already pointed out that you're kind of a jerk, like to fire people. Negotiating, your title is you need to be relentless.
Yes. And my next book coming out is actually called No, just No. And it's the psychology of sales and negotiation. And it is about watching every penny that you spend. It's about watching every deal that you do. And it's about making sure that you're not getting taken advantage of, or people aren't overcharging you, or you're getting the best deal possible for whatever it is you're trying to negotiate. And I use this example in my business all the time when contractors come in and they want to charge me $1,000 to rewire an outlet in a restaurant. And my first response is, I'll give you $700. And 9 times out of 10, they take it. If I gave everybody that walked in my door everything they think they wanted, I would be out hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over the years. So
you'll pay $700 to rewire one outlet.
Believe it or not, that's what they wanted.
You can do that in like 8 minutes, right?
If you knew how to do it, I don't.
I do. I'll do it for $500. Brian, the next time you need it done, call me, for God's sakes. Sounds like that was a true story. My manager walked over and said he wants $1,000, and I said, give him $700. He just stood and looked at me. I said, go offer him $700. And he came back. He said he'll take it. I said, I told you. What are your restaurants? You have restaurants in the Atlanta area, right?
We do. Our primary brand is Central City Tavern. It's kind of an upscale sports tavern.
Where is that located?
Alpharetta, Johns Creek, Buford, and we have one coming in Woodstock next year.
Okay. So how big a place is it? Is it designed to sort of be a local watering hole?
It is. We call it Central City in the city center. So it's kind of the Cheers bar in each of the towns we put them in. 5,000
feet or smaller, or how big is
4,000 square feet is our footprint.
Okay.
So, and we're bar centric. So we have a giant bar with indoor, outdoor windows. You can sit out on the patio or sit inside. Most of them look out on a green space, where people can gather outside. So it's kind of the hometown bar kind of feel.
Was it on one of the TV shows?
Nope. Hasn't been on a TV show.
I'm trying to figure out if I've eaten there or not.
Have you been around the Atlanta area or the Alpharetta area?
Yeah, I live in Sandy Springs.
Oh, well, gosh. Okay. Yeah. Alpharetta right downtown in city center, and Sugar Hill city center. I also own the Derby, which is in Johns Creek, and I own Cantina Loca. That's our other brands. If you lived here long, you've probably heard of the Derby.
Yes, I've heard of the Derby.
Yeah, I've owned that one too.
I don't know when. I'm trying to remember the last time I went there, though.
Probably a long time ago. We used to have more. We're down to I own one location, and I sold one of them to one of my employees. And that one's up. The one I own's up on Nesbitt Ferry in Old Alabama.
That might be the one that I was at maybe 20 years ago. Are they that old? 15?
Oh yeah, it's been there for 40 years.
Okay, yeah, I have been there.
It's an old Smoky Bar.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Kind of like Manual's.
Yep. I probably haven't been there once in the last year. I don't even go in.
The bar? You mean your own bar?
Yeah, I don't go to the bars that often, and that one, because it's a Smoky Bar, I don't go there that often.
But don't you want to have a bar where everyone knows your name, like the theme song? Like
that's Cheers? The Central City. Yeah, that's the Central City Tavern brand.
Oh, okay, that's different. All right. And how often do you go there?
Well, I live about a quarter of a mile from the one here in Alpharetta, so I go there a couple times a week. The other ones I don't really go to that much. I have always built businesses that don't require me to actually be in them and working them.
So you're lazy.
It's because I'm ambitiously lazy. That's exactly right.
I'm paying attention. So what do you do all day with yourself then?
Well, I just got back from Park City for 2 weeks, and in 2 more weeks, I'm headed to, I'm on city council here in Alpharetta, so we have a retreat, and then I'm headed to Vail for a week, and then I'm headed to Park City for 2 weeks, and then I'll be back in Atlanta. Oh, here's a very fun fact. On Wednesday, I'll be at SpaceX in California.
Oh, wow. That is cool.
That'll be fun.
Are at Park City right now.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Skiing there this very second as we speak.
Yep.
And tomorrow,
I love Park City.
This will air tomorrow, and they'll be skiing then too. So,
yeah, Park City is one of my favorite towns.
It is a great place. Yes. What are your thoughts on the 4-hour work week?
If you set up your businesses correctly, very viable. Not in the beginning, of course. Everybody in the beginning's got to hustle. But once you get it established and you set your business up, you can set it up to where, much like I do, you don't have to go in and actually do the physical work anymore.
And if you're so strict with your call center workers, how do you judge individual restaurants, or do you even judge individual managers or individual servers? How does that practice play out in a restaurant?
So I'm a big believer in P&Ls, and I believe that your P&L is what you call your magic crystal ball. You can tell almost everything about a business if you dissect a P&L and analyze it correctly. So every category within a restaurant is broken down on our P&L, so we know food costs, labor costs, liquor costs versus sales. We know what our comps are, which is what they're giving away. And by managing those three metrics, I can tell you if food's being stolen, if it's being not charged. I can tell you if the bartenders are over pouring. I can tell you if the staff is riding the clock and running over their hours. I can also manage all of them off my phone because we have an app that tracks everything that goes on in the stores. So I can look at my phone right now and look at every single open check, close check, every tip that's been given. I can look at the cameras and see what's going on. I can see my food costs. I can see what items are popular. I can literally manage that entire business without ever stepping foot in it by looking at P&Ls. So we are deadly serious about the metrics inside of a business, and that's how we manage them.
And does the manager get compensated based on how closely they hit the numbers?
Yep. So they have their base salary, and then they have the three metrics that they have to manage, which is food, liquor, labor, and they get bonused on whether they hit them, as well as the regional manager and the district manager.
So how close to projections they are?
So for instance, your liquor costs in a restaurant need to be at 22%. Now that's my restaurant. We pour a little heavier. We make what we call badass drinks in our restaurants, where a fancier restaurant might be running 17 or 18%, but they know that they have to hit the 22% liquor cost. So when they do their weekly orders, for instance, they can order up to the 22% mark. And if they go over, they have to explain why. And then we get to the end of the month. If their numbers are off, we have to go back and we have to explain why. Same thing with food costs and the same thing with labor costs. Everything is balanced to that exact percentage.
And
22 on
comps?
liquor.
What's your policy with comps?
So we know as a restaurant that bartenders are going to give stuff away. We don't care as long as it stands within about 2.5%. So 2.5% is going to get comped, whether it's given away, lost, whatever. And you're okay with that.
And who's going to decide what customers get that comp? The bartender or the
bartenders?
manager?
Bartenders. But you have to understand, if they start doing it too much and that comp goes too high, then the liquor costs will go off. If the liquor costs become too high, then we go back and we start analyzing why it's too high, when it's too high, and then we find out who's doing it. So as a, for instance, it happened one month and we were missing 400 glasses of beer in 1 month in a restaurant. And we came back and pulled the cameras and we saw the bartender was giving away free drinks all the time.
So you fired him or killed him?
We fired him.
Do they get a warning or do they just get fired?
No, you get fired for that. That's blatant theft.
Yeah, 400 free beers is, I mean,
Yep.
you would assume his tips skyrocketed, right?
Well, they're either giving them away or they're what they'll typically do is they'll take the cash if the person's paying cash, and then they'll, comp it out and then pop the cash in the pocket, which is what we saw.
How long do you keep your camera film?
I think we're only on a 7-day loop right now.
I'm the type customer, Brian, that eats out. Well, it used to be 21 meals a week only. But I've cut back a lot now because I have a chef wife who, cooks delicious foods, and we're trying for the kids to learn to eat at home and stuff. So, but when we eat out, I expect my appetizers free. I'm that customer.
Wow.
Well, I do because I bring the business. I'm the type customer that for Nakado Japanese restaurant on Cheshire Bridge also landed them the Delta dining contract for all of their planes to Tokyo.
Wow.
I got them that contract.
That is a mega influencer contract.
So
yes.
when I don't expect to pay there now.
That's probably worthwhile.
And you know,
for sure.
Chang's that just closed there at exit 5, not the exit 8, but exit 5 Perimeter Mall location.
Mm-mm.
I never paid there ever, not a cent.
Interesting.
But you know why is I had the CEO of PF Chang was in town one day, and I knew about it before they did. And I was able to walk in with him when he went into the restaurant, and they all thought that I had showed up with him. I had just timed it right. So I knew the guy. I mean, I knew he was showing up, you know?
Right.
But I was able to leverage that with some artistic planning of my arrival. So
that worked out perfect for you.
Yes. And I'm going to try it at all of your places. I was on the phone with Brian yesterday, and he told me I was free today.
Just bring the rain and we'll set you up.
He wants me to smile to the video.
Say, bring the rain and we'll set you up.
Brian, how do we find out where we get a copy of the book? Follow you online, go to have dinner with you, buy some landscaping, have you design a technology platform for us, or any of the above call center stuff?
www.brianwillmedia.com.
Brian.
Everything's on there.
Willmedia.com.
Yep. All of our podcasts are on there. The books are on there. The site is in a redesign, so don't judge me too harshly on what it looks like now. It'll be redone in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Brian, appreciate you being with us. Great stuff. Great story. Congratulations on the book.
It was super fun, man. I appreciate you having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Dropout Multi-Millionaire. To learn more about how we can help you with your business, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, visit www.brianwillmedia.com or the Dropout MM on Instagram.